The emergency lights bathed the council chambers in harsh white light. Ambassador Ji-hun Park walked through the massive doors with his two companions following close behind. The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from 40 different species. Crystal pillars stretched up to a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Every seat was filled today. Ji-hun's shoes clicked against the polished floor as he made his way to the human section. Beside him walked Min Seo, his attaché, carrying a datapad. On his other side was Commander Hee-jin, still wearing her military uniform. The three humans sat down in their assigned seats and waited. Around them, the other species were already talking. The Vrex delegates clicked their mandibles together in agitation. Their insect-like bodies shifted and moved constantly. The Delphani representatives floated in their water tanks, their skin flashing different colors. The Luminar beings pulsed with light, sending messages to each other in frequencies most species couldn't see. All of them were watching the humans. Council Chair Velraxis stood at the center platform. He was massive even for a Vrex, nearly 3 meters tall, with a dark green shell. His forearms gestured as he spoke. His voice translated into dozens of languages through the chamber's systems. "We have called this emergency session because of the situation in human territory," Velraxis began. 3 colony worlds have gone silent: New Seoul, Busan Station, and Jeju Outpost. All communications ceased 4 days ago. We have gathered to discuss possible causes and solutions. Ji-hun sat perfectly still. His hands rested on the table in front of him. His face showed no expression. Beside him, Min Seo opened her datapad and prepared to take notes. Hee-jin clasped her hands together and stared straight ahead. The Delphani representative, whose name translated roughly as Swift Current, spoke next. His tank bubbled as he communicated, and the translator converted his words. "We have analyzed the stellar data from that region. There are no anomalies, no solar flares, no gravitational disturbances, no radiation spikes that would explain a sudden loss of contact." "Thank you," Ji-hun said quietly. His voice was calm and even. "We appreciate the Council's quick response to this situation." A luminar being pulsed brightly. The translation came through. Could this be a technical failure? Perhaps all 3 colonies experienced simultaneous system breakdowns. The Vrex science advisor clicked his mandibles. Unlikely. 3 separate colonies on 3 different worlds, all failing at once? The probability is extremely low. "What about disease?" another delegate asked. "A plague that struck all 3 worlds?" Ji-hun listened to each suggestion. He nodded occasionally. When someone looked at him, he met their eyes calmly. Min Seo continued taking notes, her stylus moving across the pad in smooth strokes. Hee-jin remained motionless. "Could the humans have simply abandoned these colonies?" a delegate from the back asked. "Perhaps they were too expensive to maintain?" Ji-hun's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained level. "Those colonies are home to over 200,000 people. We don't abandon our citizens." Of course, Velraxis said quickly. "No one is suggesting that. We're simply exploring all possibilities." The debate continued for 3 hours. Various species proposed different theories. Some thought it might be a natural disaster. Others suggested equipment failure. A few wondered if the colonies had chosen to cut contact deliberately. Through it all, Ji-hun sat quietly. He answered questions when asked. He thanked people for their suggestions. He showed no anger, no fear, no grief. The other species found this strange. The Vrex showed stress through pheromones and movement. The Delphani changed colors. The Luminar flickered and dimmed, but the humans just sat there, looking perfectly calm. "Perhaps they're in shock," one delegate whispered to another. "Or maybe they just don't care," came the reply. As the session drew to a close, Velraxis addressed the chamber again. "We will form investigation teams to travel to each colony. We will discover what happened. In the meantime, I ask everyone to remain calm and avoid speculation. He looked directly at Ji-hun. Ambassador Park, I want to assure you that the Council takes this matter seriously. We will find answers. Thank you, Council Chair, Ji-hun replied. His voice was steady. Humanity trusts the Council to handle this appropriately. The session ended. As the delegates began to leave, Velraxis turned to his aide, a younger Vrex named Klix. Well, at least the humans are taking this rationally. I was worried they might do something rash. Klix's antennae twitched in agreement. Yes. Good, Velraxis said. The last thing we need is an emotional species doing something stupid in their grief. The humans walked out of the chamber in silence. They moved through the corridors of Apex Station toward their shuttle. No one spoke until they were safely inside their own vessel, with the doors sealed. Ji-hun sat down heavily in his chair. His hands were shaking now. Minseo set down her datapad and covered her face. Heejin's calm expression finally cracked, and tears rolled down her cheeks. They don't understand, Minseo whispered. They think we don't care. Let them think that, Ji-hun said quietly. His voice was different now, harder. They'll learn soon enough. Heejin wiped her eyes and pulled up a communication screen. The fleet? Already moving, Ji-hun confirmed. They've been on standby since the colonies went dark. They'll be in position in 48 hours. The Council won't like that, Minseo said. Ji-hun's expression was cold now. Nothing like the calm mask he'd worn in the chamber. I don't care what the Council likes. Those are our people out there. We're bringing them home. 48 hours passed slowly. Ji-hun barely slept. He spent most of his time in the human embassy on Apex Station, reading reports and drinking too much coffee. Minseo worked beside him, coordinating communications with human space. Heejin disappeared for hours at a time, though no one asked where she went. The Council reconvened as promised. This time, the chamber felt different. The casual atmosphere from before was gone. The investigation teams had returned with their findings. Ji-hun walked into the chamber with the same calm expression as before. He took his seat. Minseo sat beside him. Heijin joined them, her military uniform pressed and clean. All three humans looked composed and ready. Velraxis stood at the center platform again. His mandibles clicked nervously. We have received the preliminary reports from all three investigation teams. I must warn everyone that the findings are disturbing. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background noise of different species communicating stopped. All three colonies were attacked, Velraxis said. The attacks were coordinated and deliberate. The colonies were stripped of all valuable resources. The inhabitants were taken. A murmur ran through the chamber. Ji-hun didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on Velraxis. The attackers have been identified as elements of the Kresh Dominion, Velraxis continued. This is confirmed by ship signatures and tactical patterns. We estimate that over 200,000 humans were captured and are being held in Kresh slave facilities. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted questions. Some demanded action. Others called for caution. The noise level rose until Velraxis had to use the chamber's sound system to restore order. Please. Everyone remain calm, Velraxis shouted. We will discuss our options systematically. Croesus. Through all of this, Ji-hun sat perfectly still. His hands rested on the table. His breathing was steady. Minseo had stopped taking notes. Her pen hovered over the datapad. Unmoving, Heijin's hands were clasped so tightly together that her knuckles had turned white. None of the other delegates noticed these signs. The debate began. A Delphani representative proposed sending a formal protest to the Kresh. We must make our displeasure known through proper channels. Another delegate suggested economic sanctions. We could limit trade with any world that does business with the Kresh. Over time, this would pressure them to release the prisoners. How much time? Ji-hun asked quietly. His voice cut through the debate like a knife. The delegate paused. Well, these things take time to implement. Perhaps 6 months to see results? A year? At most? Ji-hun nodded slowly and said nothing more. A luminar being pulsed with light. We could send a peacekeeping fleet to the region. Establish a presence that would discourage further attacks. How long would it take to assemble such a fleet? Velraxis asked. 3 months to gather the ships. Another month for coordination and travel. Call it 4 months total. 4 months. Ji-hun's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. The debate dragged on. Hour after hour, delegates proposed solutions. All of them took time. All of them followed proper procedures. All of them were careful not to escalate the situation too quickly. Finally, a delegate from a species called the Thornbacks spoke up. Perhaps humanity should consider abandoning that region of space entirely. The frontier is dangerous. These colonies were always at risk. Cut your losses and move your people to safer locations. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to the human delegation. Ji-hun stood slowly. He didn't speak immediately. He simply looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegate after delegate. When he finally spoke, his voice was perfectly level. I want to thank the Council for these suggestions, he said. Each word was carefully measured. Humanity appreciates the time and effort everyone has put into discussing this situation. We understand that galactic politics are complicated. He paused. Not a single muscle in his face moved. We understand that these things take time, he continued. Protests must be filed. Sanctions must be debated. Fleets must be assembled. All very reasonable. All very proper. All very slow. Velraxis shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Park, I assure you, we are taking this seriously. While we sit here. Ji-hun interrupted, his voice dropping lower. 200,000 humans are in slave pens. They are being beaten, starved, worked until they collapse. Children are crying for parents who can't help them. Families are being torn apart. And we are discussing trade sanctions that might work in 6 months. The chamber was completely silent now. We have sat here for 6 hours, Ji-hun said. 6 hours of debate. 6 hours of discussion. 6 hours of very calm, very reasonable conversation about the proper way to handle this situation. And do you know what the conclusion is? No one answered. The conclusion is that you will do nothing that matters. Not soon enough. Not fast enough. Not effectively enough. Ji-hun's voice remained quiet, but something in his tone made several delegates lean back in their seats. You see us sitting calmly and think we have accepted this, Ji-hun continued. You see us listening politely and think we agree with your timeline. You don't understand humans at all. He looked directly at Velraxis. We have been calm because we were giving you a chance. We were hoping the Council would do the right thing quickly. That chance is over. Ambassador Park, what are you saying? Velraxis demanded. I'm saying that humanity thanks the Council for its time, Ji-hun replied, and humanity will handle this ourselves. You can't take unilateral military action, a Delphani delegate shouted. That violates Council protocols. The Kresh aren't Council members, Minseo said quietly. The colonies weren't in Council space. What protocols exactly would we be violating? The chamber erupted again. Delegates shouted about precedent, about proper channels, about the destabilizing effects of unauthorized military action. Ji-hun let them shout. He simply gathered his things, nodded to his companions, and walked toward the exit. If you do this, there will be consequences, Velraxis called after him. Ji-hun stopped at the door. He turned back, and for the first time, his calm expression shifted into something colder. Consequences, he repeated. Yes, there will be consequences. The Kresh are about to learn what those look like. The 3 humans left the chamber. Behind them, the Council dissolved into chaos. The Council chamber alarms started blaring 30 minutes after the humans left. Velraxis rushed to the main sensor station with several other delegates crowding behind him. What's happening? He demanded. The sensor technician, a small mammalian species with excellent technical skills, looked up with wide eyes. Ships. Dozens of them. All human vessels. Where? Velraxis asked, though he already suspected the answer. They're leaving dock across human space. Warships, carriers, support vessels. It's the largest military mobilization we've seen from humanity in decades. On the main screen, red markers appeared one after another. Each one represented a human military vessel powering up and departing from station. The markers formed a pattern, all converging on a single vector. They're heading toward Kresh territory, the technician said unnecessarily. Velraxis stared at the screen. How long were they preparing this? Based on the coordination? They must have started the moment their colonies went dark, maybe even before we held our first meeting. Summon Ambassador Park immediately, Velraxis ordered. We need to stop this, before it's too late. 20 minutes later, Ji-hun stood before the council again. This time, he wasn't alone. Behind him were Min Seo and Hai Jin, but also 3 human military officers in full uniform. They stood at attention, their faces showing no emotion. Ambassador Park, Velraxis began, trying to keep his voice calm. Our sensors show a massive fleet movement. Surely this is a misunderstanding? No misunderstanding, Ji-hun replied. His voice was quiet as always. As I said, humanity will handle this ourselves. You can't attack the Kresh, a Delphani delegate shouted. They're not council members, but they're also not at war with anyone. This is an act of aggression. They took our people, Min Seo said simply. That was the act of aggression. But proper channels, another delegate started. We tried proper channels, Heejin interrupted. We sat here for hours listening to you debate. Our people don't have time for more debate. Velraxis held up his hands. Please, let's discuss this calmly. Ambassador Park, I understand your frustration, but starting a war will have consequences far beyond this immediate situation. It will affect humanity's standing in the galactic community. It could lead to sanctions, trade restrictions, diplomatic isolation. Ji-hun looked at Velraxis for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was even quieter than before. You still don't understand, he said. You keep talking about proper channels and consequences and diplomatic standing. You think these things matter more to us than our people. He stepped closer to the council chair. Let me explain something about humans. We care very much about diplomacy. We value our relationships with other species. We want to be part of the galactic community, but there is a line you don't cross. You don't take our people. You don't hurt our families. When someone crosses that line, nothing else matters. That's barbaric, someone muttered. Maybe, Ji-hun acknowledged. But it's who we are. And you need to understand something else. Do you remember how we acted in the first meeting? How calm we were? How patient? The chamber was silent. You thought we were in shock, or that we didn't care, or that we were too weak to respond. You saw us sitting quietly and thought it meant acceptance. Ji-hun's quiet voice somehow filled the enormous chamber. You were wrong about all of it. Saints is here one. And down for they. Ji-hun's. And down for they. Min Seo spoke up. When humans are loud and angry, that's when we're just upset. We yell, we argue, we make a lot of noise. But we're not really dangerous. That's just emotion. But when we get quiet, Heijin continued. When we start speaking calmly? When we sit perfectly still and listen to everything you say without reacting? That's when you should be afraid. Because we're not calm, we're focused. Ji-hun nodded. Every second we sat here listening to your debates, we were planning. Every moment we appeared patient. Our fleet was moving into position. Every time we thanked you for your suggestions, we were calculating the fastest way to get our people back. You mistook our quiet for weakness. That was your first error. Quote, your second error, one of the military officers said, was assuming we would let you control the timeline. 200,000 people in slave pens. Every hour matters. Every day matters. You wanted months to work through proper channels. We don't have months. Velraxus's mandibles clicked in agitation. But the Kresh are formidable. They've been raiding and enslaving for thousands of years. Their war clans are legendary. You'll be sending your fleet into a meat grinder. Will we? Ji-hun asked simply. The Kresh have numbers, experience, and they know their territory. Velraxus insisted. This isn't about courage or determination. It's about military reality. You're right that it's about military reality, Heijin said. But you're assuming you understand that reality. You've seen humans at peace. You've seen us trading, exploring, building colonies. You think you know what we're capable of. She smiled, but there was no humor in it. You've never seen humans at war. Not really. Not when we've decided that talking is over and action is required. This is madness, a luminar being pulsed. You'll all be killed. Maybe, Ji-hun acknowledged. But we'll get our people out first. That's what matters. He turned to leave, then paused and looked back at the council. You wanted us to be calm and reasonable. We were. We gave you 2 chances to help. You chose procedures over people. That's your right. But now you'll see what humans do when calm and reasonable doesn't work. What does that mean? Velraxus asked. It means, Ji-hun said softly, that you're about to learn the difference between humans being calm and humans being peaceful. We were never peaceful. We were just being polite. That's over now. The humans walked out. This time, no one tried to stop them. Back at their shuttle, Minseo finally let her composure crack. They really have no idea. Do they? None. Heijin confirmed. They think we're being emotional and reckless. They think the Kresh will crush us. Ji-hun pulled up a tactical display. It showed the human fleet, already deep into Kresh territory. Behind that fleet were smaller markers moving through the shadows. Our special forces teams? Minseo asked. Already on the ground, Ji-hun confirmed. They've been there for 36 hours. While the council was debating, our people were already moving. The council thought our calm meant we weren't planning, Heijin said. They were half right. We weren't planning. We already had a plan before we ever walked into that chamber. Ji-hun closed the tactical display. Let's go home. We'll watch the news from there. The council is about to get an education in how humans really work. The Kresh war leader Grakoth stood in his command center, watching the approaching human fleet with amusement. His scaled skin reflected the red light from the displays around him. Other Kresh officers moved through the room, preparing for battle. How many ships? Grakoth asked. 43 confirmed, his second-in-command replied. A mix of cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. No dreadnoughts. Grakoth's lip curled back, showing sharp teeth. And we have 137 warships in range. More coming from the outer regions. So they come to fight us 3-1 in our own territory? Grakoth laughed. Humans are even more foolish than I thought. Ready all fleets. We'll teach them what happens when soft species try to play at war. The Kresh Dominion had been raiding and conquering for thousands of years. They had crushed dozens of species. Their warriors were bred for combat. Their ships were designed for one purpose: overwhelming force. They didn't believe in fair fights or honorable combat. They believed in winning through superior numbers and brutal tactics. The human fleet continued its approach. Grakoth watched them on the main display. They weren't moving fast. They weren't performing evasive maneuvers. They just came forward in a straight line, as if they had all the time in the world. They're not even trying to hide. An officer observed. Should we be suspicious? Of what? They're desperate, Grakoth said. They want their people back, so they're throwing everything they have at us. It won't matter. When their fleet is destroyed, we'll have even more humans to sell. This attack will actually increase our profits. The human fleet crossed into weapons range. Grakoth expected them to spread out, to try different tactics, to do something clever. Instead, they just kept coming forward in their formation. All ships, begin attack, Grakoth ordered. Standard overwhelming formation. Crush them quickly. The Kresh fleet moved forward to meet the humans. More than 100 warships against fewer than 50. The outcome seemed certain. Then the humans opened fire. The first Kresh ship exploded so quickly that Grakoth almost missed it. One moment it was there. The next it was debris. The human ships were firing with precision that Grakoth had never seen before. Every shot hit. Every hit mattered. "Return fire!" Grakoth shouted. The Kresh ships launched their weapons. Missiles streaked through space toward the human vessels. Energy beams lashed out. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships moved. Not quickly, not frantically, but with exact timing. They slipped between attacks as if they had known exactly where each shot would go. Their formation shifted. Each ship adjusting its position by just enough to avoid being hit. It was like watching a dance, and they never stopped firing. "Status," Grakoth demanded. "We've lost 18 ships. The humans have lost." "None?" "What? Impossible. Hit them, all weapons." But hitting the human ships proved almost impossible. They moved with a coordination that seemed unnatural. When one ship would have been trapped, another would be there to provide cover. When the Kresh tried to flank them, the humans had already adjusted their formation to counter it. Worse, the human weapons were devastatingly effective. Each shot was placed precisely where it would do the most damage. Engine cores, weapon arrays, life support systems. The humans weren't just shooting. They were dismantling the Kresh fleet piece by piece. "They're not fighting like we expected," an officer said, stating the obvious. No, they weren't. The Kresh were used to passionate combat. Enemies who charged forward with battle cries. Warriors who fought with rage and fury. The humans weren't doing any of that. They fought like machines. No wasted movement. No unnecessary risk. No emotion at all. Just cold, calculated efficiency. Admiral Sung-ho commanded the human fleet from his flagship. His voice came through the communication channels to all his ships, quiet and level. "Target their command ship. Port-side weapons array. Fire." The shots hit exactly where he said. The Kresh command ship's left side went dark. "Adjust formation. Pattern Delta 7. Proceed." The human ships moved smoothly into a new configuration. The Kresh tried to follow, but they were already out of position. "Enemy reinforcements, arriving from Vector 9, a sensor officer reported. "Noted," Sung-ho replied. "Groups 3 and 4. Intercept pattern. Everyone else, continue current objective. No shouting, no dramatic orders." Sung-ho ran the battle like he was solving a math problem. Every decision was calculated. Every movement had a purpose. And the Kresh fleet was losing. Grakoth couldn't believe what he was seeing. They had superior numbers. They had experience. They had the advantage of fighting in their own territory. And they were being destroyed. "Fall back," he finally ordered. "Retreat to the slave compounds. They won't risk hitting the facilities with their people inside." The Kresh fleet, what was left of it, pulled back toward their base. The massive compounds where they kept their captured slaves were heavily fortified. The humans would have to slow down, to be careful, to negotiate, except the humans didn't slow down at all. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the compounds," a communications officer said. His voice was shaking. "The defenses are offline. The guards aren't responding." Grakoth pulled up the security feeds from the compounds. What he saw made his blood run cold. Human soldiers were already inside. They were everywhere, moving through the hallways in small teams. The Kresh guards were down. The cell blocks were open. Prisoners were being evacuated. How? Grakoth whispered. When did they get there? The answer came from one of the security monitors. A human soldier looked directly into the camera. She was wearing combat armor that was covered in Kresh blood. Her face was calm, almost expressionless. She spoke in perfect Kresh. We've been here for 2 days. While your leaders were deciding what to do, we were already working. Goodbye. The feed cut to black. Grakoth realized the truth then. The fleet had never been the main attack. It had been a distraction. A very effective, very devastating distraction. But a distraction, nonetheless. The real assault had been happening on the ground the whole time. His communication system activated. A human face appeared on the screen. Admiral Sung Ho looked at him with no expression at all. War Leader Grakoth, Sung Ho said quietly. You took our people. We're taking them back. Your fleet is destroyed. Your compounds are empty. It's over. You can't. Grakoth struggled to find words. We already did. Sung Ho replied. Your Dominion attacked 3 human colonies and thought we would negotiate. You thought wrong. You saw us acting calm in the council chambers and thought we were weak. You saw us speaking politely and thought we wouldn't respond. You made the same mistake everyone makes. You confused our calm for helplessness. Sung Ho leaned closer to the camera. We're not helpless. We're focused. And when humans focus, we don't stop until we get what we want. Remember that. The transmission ended. 18 hours after the battle began. It was over. Every human prisoner had been recovered. The Kresh fleet was shattered. And the galaxy had just learned something new about humanity. The council chambers were packed. Every delegate was present. The emergency session had been called within hours of receiving the news from Kresh territory. Velraxis stood at the center platform, his mandibles clicking nervously. Ambassador Ji-hun Park walked in with Min Seo and He Jin. He looked exactly the same as he had in every previous meeting. Calm face. Steady walk. Quiet demeanor. But now the other delegates looked at him differently. Ambassador Park. Velraxis began. His voice formal. The Council has called this session to discuss the recent military action in Kresh territory. Of course, Ji-hun replied politely. He sat down. His companions joined him. A Delphani delegate stood immediately. His tank bubbled with agitation, making his skin flash red and orange. This is unacceptable. Humanity conducted an unauthorized military operation. You destroyed an entire fleet. You invaded multiple facilities. You acted without council approval. You acted without council approval. The Kresh attacked human colonies without council approval too, Min Seo noted. But I don't recall an emergency session about that. End quote. That's different, another delegate shouted. How? He-jin asked simply. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Finally, a luminar being pulsed with light. The translation came through. The methods used were disturbing. The efficiency, the precision, the complete lack of mercy shown to the Kresh forces. Mercy. Ji-hun's voice was quiet but sharp. They took 200,000 of our people and put them in slave pens. They beat them, starved them, planned to sell them like animals. And you want to talk about mercy? But the speed of your response, Velraxis started, was appropriate, Ji-hun interrupted. Every hour our people spent in those pens was an hour of suffering. We ended that suffering as quickly as possible. That's what you do when you care about your people. A small delegate from a peaceful species spoke up nervously. But Ambassador Park, you deceived us. You sat here in the first meeting acting calm. But you were planning war the whole time. Ji-hun looked at the delegate for a long moment. No, we didn't deceive anyone. We told you exactly what happened. We told you our people were taken. We told you they were suffering. We asked for help. You chose to debate procedures instead of taking action. That's not deception. That's you misreading the situation. You appeared calm, the delegate insisted. We were calm, Heejin said. Calm doesn't mean happy. It doesn't mean accepting. It doesn't mean we weren't going to do anything. It just means we were thinking clearly, instead of panicking. Minseo pulled up a data display. Let's review the timeline. Our colonies went dark on day 1. On day 2, we came to the council. We explained the situation. We were calm and clear because panic doesn't help anyone. On day 3, investigation teams confirmed our people were taken by slavers. We sat through 6 hours of debate about sanctions and proper channels, still calm, still clear, still waiting to see if you would actually help. On day 4, Heejin continued, when it became obvious the council would take months to do anything meaningful, we told you we would handle it ourselves. We didn't hide anything. We stated our intentions, directly. And then you attacked, Velraxis said. And then we rescued our people, Jihoon corrected. Which was always going to happen. The only question was whether you would help or be irrelevant. You chose irrelevant. But your special forces were already in place, another delegate protested. You must have sent them before our first meeting. We sent them the moment our colonies went dark, Jihoon confirmed. Because we knew, whatever else happened, we would need people on the ground. That's called planning ahead. So you never intended to let the council handle this, Velraxis accused. We gave you the chance, Minseo said. If you had moved quickly, if you had shown any urgency at all, our forces would have supported a council operation. But you talked about sanctions that would take months, and fleets that would take even longer. Our people didn't have that kind of time. An elder delegate from a species known for wisdom spoke up. His voice was thoughtful. I think I begin to understand. Ambassador Park, when you sat here so calmly, you were not in shock. You were not uncaring. You were... What is the word? Processing? Focusing, Jihoon said. We were focusing. When humans face a crisis, we have 2 modes. One is emotional. We yell. We cry. We make a lot of noise. That's when we're upset but not really dangerous. The other mode is quiet. We get calm. We think clearly. We plan. That's when we're actually dangerous. You should have warned us, a delegate complained. We did warn you, Heejin said. We told you what happened to our people. We told you it was unacceptable. We told you we would handle it ourselves. You just didn't believe us because we weren't screaming and crying, the Luminar being pulsed again. But now what? The Kresh Dominion is in chaos. You've destroyed their fleet, freed their prisoners, shattered their power. The entire region is unstable. Yes, Jihoon agreed. And that instability will settle into a new order. One where everyone knows that taking humans leads to consequences. Quick, certain, and overwhelming consequences. You're trying to frighten the galaxy, Velraxis accused. No, Minseo said. We're trying to make sure this never happens again. The Kresh took our people because they thought we were soft. They thought we would negotiate or pay ransom or accept it as a loss. They were wrong. Now everyone knows they were wrong. But you've set a dangerous precedent, a delegate argued. What's to stop other species from taking similar unilateral action? Jihoon stood up. His voice remained quiet. But somehow, it filled the chamber. Here's what you need to understand about humans. We don't want to fight. We don't want war. We want to trade, explore, build relationships with other species. We believe in diplomacy and cooperation. We meant every word we said about valuing the council. He paused, looking around the chamber. But there are lines you don't cross. You don't hurt our families. You don't take our people. When someone crosses those lines, everything else becomes secondary. We will use every resource we have. We will move heaven and earth. We will do whatever it takes to protect our own. That sounds like a threat, Velraxis said. It's not a threat, Heijin replied. It's information. You can work with that information or ignore it. But you can't say we didn't tell you. Mincio stood as well. The council seems upset that we appeared calm while planning decisive action. Let me be very clear about something. That's going to keep happening. Every time there's a crisis, humans will appear calm. We'll sit quietly. We'll listen to your suggestions. We'll be polite and reasonable. And while you're seeing that calm exterior, Ji-hun continued, you need to remember what's happening underneath. We're thinking. We're planning. We're calculating the most effective response. Our calm is not weakness. It's not acceptance. It's aim. He let that word hang in the air. Aim. Like pointing a weapon. Going forward, Ji-hun said, you have a choice. When humans come to you with a problem, you can take it seriously and act quickly. Or you can debate procedures while we handle it ourselves. Either way, we will protect our people. The only difference is whether you're part of the solution or just observers. Velraxis's mandibles clicked in frustration. This is not how civilized species behave. Maybe not, Ji-hun acknowledged. But this is how humans behave. We tried doing things your way. We sat calmly. We waited patiently. We gave you time to work through your processes. And while we waited, our people suffered. He looked directly at Velraxis. Never again. From now on, when we come to you calm and quiet, you should worry. Because that's when we're most focused. That's when we've already decided to act. That's when we're just being polite enough to give you one last chance to help. And if we don't, Velraxis asked, then we handle it ourselves, Ji-hun said simply. Just like we did this time. The three humans walked toward the exit. At the door, Ji-hun paused and looked back one more time. The Kresh thought our calm meant we were weak. You thought our patience meant we would do nothing. You both learned the same lesson today. When humans appear calm, that's not peace. That's not surrender. That's the moment before the storm. The moment when we stop talking and start acting. Remember that. They left the chamber. Behind them, the council sat in silence. Some delegates were angry. Some were frightened. Some were thoughtful. But all of them were reeling from the same realization. They had completely misunderstood humanity. They had seen the calm surface and assumed there was nothing underneath. They had been wrong. In the weeks that followed, the story spread across the galaxy. The species that appeared so calm and reasonable had destroyed an entire slaver operation. In less than a day, they had rescued all their people while barely taking any casualties. They had done it while the council was still debating what sanctions to impose. Other species began studying human behavior more carefully. They created new guidelines for diplomatic interaction. Rule 1 was always the same. When humans get quiet and calm, take them very seriously. That's when they're most dangerous. Ambassador Park's final words to the council became famous. We appear calm, but that's not calm, it's aim. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's calm was not weakness. It was focus. It was preparation. It was the moment before decisive action. And no one would make the mistake of ignoring it again.